Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm Jordan at Afterburner Automation, and today we're going to be walking through the first of two courses on the browser package. By the end of this course, you should be able to use the browser package to open and close web browsers, as well as download files from the internet. One thing to note about this package is that while it can be used with different web browsers like Microsoft Edge or Mozilla Firefox, it works best with Google Chrome. That's not to say you should always use Chrome, but A360 is built to work with Chrome, so you'll get the best results when you use that browser as opposed to some of the others. Anyway, let's get started. First, make sure that you log into the control room and navigate to the automation section, like we've been doing. Then, navigate to the Citizen Developer folder and create a new subfolder called Browser 101. Let's create a new bot within that folder. For this bot, we're going to pretend that we work for a financial services firm. Every day, our boss uploads an Excel document with 25 stocks that they're interested in, and we need to download that file and get both the current price and a document with the last year's worth of historical prices. With that in mind, let's name this bot CD18-stock prices. Before we get started on this bot, you'll need to download the important links txt file from the resources tab below this video player. It has a few URLs that you'll need for this bot to function, so go ahead and get that downloaded and in front of you so that we can move on. Anyway, now that we're in the RPA workspace, let's start by downloading that daily Excel file from our boss. To do this, we're going to head over to the Actions sidebar and look for the browser package. Inside, we'll see a handful of actions, but what we want is the download file command. This command lets you download files directly from the internet without actually needing to open a browser. So let's drag that over to the main workspace and see what options we get. In the right sidebar, you'll see that all we need is the URL of the file we want and the location that we want to save it to. For the URL, I've included a link in the important links txt file called input file. So you can copy the link from that file and paste it into the URL of the file field. Then, we need to decide where to store this file and what to call it. Let's click Browse to open up the Select File window. Once that opens, navigate to the desktop and create a new folder called CD18-stock prices. Open up that folder, then click just to the right of the new folder name in the address field near the top of the window to highlight the full path. Copy that path, close this window, and then paste it into the Save to Location field. This is just the folder path, so let's add a backslash and name this file stocksrequested.xlsx. Then we need to decide whether or not we want to overwrite existing files. Since we receive a new one every day, it would be wise to overwrite the old one, so let's check that box. Let's go ahead and run the bot to see what happens and get access to that file. Once the bot finishes, minimize Chrome and open up the CD18 stock prices folder on the desktop. You'll see that we have a new file called stocks requested inside. Let's go ahead and open that up and take a look. This file is pretty simple. It only has two columns, one for the stock symbol, which has 25 different symbols, and another for the price, which is blank. Now that we know what we're dealing with, let's close this file. Now that we have our file, let's head back to the RPA workspace and work on getting stock prices and historical data for each one. We know we're going to have a different file every day, so we'll need to open the file and loop through each row. Let's use the Excel Basic Open command to open the sheet. Head to the Actions sidebar and look for the Excel Basic package. Then, drag the Open command into the main workspace, just below our Download command. For the file path, let's select Desktop File, and then we can copy the location we saved our file to in the Download File command above. Paste that back into the Excel Basic Open command. We can skip the header and the sheet name options, and we'll leave the Open In option as read-write mode, since we're going to be putting the different prices into this file. The file doesn't have a password, so we can skip that option too, but let's set our Excel session to a local session and give it a name. I'm going to call it Stocks in all caps, since that's easy to remember and clearly lets me know what's in this file. Now that our file's open, we're going to need to loop through each of the stock symbols in the first column. We know there will always be 25 rows, so let's go ahead and use a loop command. Head over to the Actions sidebar and find the loop package. Then drag a loop command into our bot just below the Excel Basic Open command. It's already set to loop in times, but let's change the number of times from 10 to 25. And this time, let's leave that optional Assign the Current Value field blank. This Excel sheet has a header that we don't need to look at, so instead of looping 26 times and finding a way to skip the header, let's instead use the active cell options of our get and set cell commands. That means that when we open our Excel file, we need the first cell of the first row of data selected, which is A2. So let's go back to the Actions sidebar and go to the Excel Basic package. Grab a Go-To Cell command, then drag it over just above our loop but after the Excel Basic Open command. We can set the specific cell to A2 like we need. Then change the session name to Stocks in all caps like we used in our Open command. So now we know that the first cell of the first row is selected. We can get the stock symbol and put it into a variable. Let's head back to the Actions sidebar and use an Excel Basic Get Single Cell command. Drag that inside of the loop and the options will pop up. Active cell is already selected, which is what we want, but let's again change that session name to Stocks in all caps to match the others. Then, let's click on the Create Variable icon next to the Store Cell Contents dropdown. This cell should have the stock symbol in it, so let's name our variable stock symbol to avoid confusion. Now that we know which stock symbol we're working with, we need to find the current stock price. If someone were doing this manually, they might go to Yahoo Finance's website, so let's try this out. We'll need to open a website, so let's head back to the Actions sidebar and look for the browser package. Here, you'll find a command called open, which as you may have guessed is used to open browsers. Let's drag that command inside of our loop, but just underneath the Get Single Cell command on line 5. The first option we see is the What to Open option, which gives us 3 choices. Existing tab will open the URL in an existing tab that we already have open, but we're writing code in that tab, so that one won't work. We could choose New tab, and that would open an additional tab in our currently opened browser, which would work, but I personally like to keep my RPA workspace separate from what it's working on, so let's choose New Window. The next option is Browser, and if we open the dropdown, we'll see some of the most common web browsers as well as a default browser. Default browser will be whatever browser is set as the default browser on the computer the bot is running on, which can change depending on how you or your administrator configures your machine. I don't recommend selecting default browser, because even though right now we're building bots that are only intended to be run on your machine, it helps to get in the habit of thinking about running bots on other machines that you don't control. If you write a bot that uses the default browser, and then you run your bot on a different machine, it's possible that the other machine has a different default browser, and that can sometimes cause problems. So I always recommend choosing the browser that you want. In this case, since A360 is built with Chrome in mind, let's select Google Chrome. Next, we need to give it a link to open. We could put finance.yahoo.com here and then navigate manually to the page we want, but one of the cool things about A360 is that we can point this browser open command directly to the page we want to go to. In the important links.txt file you downloaded from the Resources tab, there's a link called stock URL. Let's copy that link and paste it into the link to open field. This is the URL to the current price section of Yahoo Finance, but if we also include the stock symbol, it'll take us directly to the page with that stock's current price. So let's put our cursor right after the last forward slash and press F2. Let's select stock symbol from the list of available options and press Yes Insert. That puts our stock symbol as the last part of the URL, which will take us directly to the page with that stock's current price. Neat, huh? Finally, we can optionally set the timeout after section. This option allows us to give the browser a certain amount of time to open the page before it throws an error. It's currently set to 240 seconds, or around 4 minutes. That means that if the page doesn't open after 4 minutes, the bot will throw an error and fail. 4 minutes is typically enough time for this field, so I'm going to leave it alone for now, but you may need to adjust this field in the future if you're dealing with a website that takes an unusually long time to load, or if you want the bot to fail if the page doesn't open in a shorter amount of time. Anyway, now that we have our website opening to the page with the current price of our stock symbol, we need to get that price and log it back into our spreadsheet. In a future course, I'll show you how to automate extracting values from websites, but for now, let's stick with what we've already learned and use a prompt for value command so that we can manually enter the value. Head over to the Actions sidebar and search for the prompt package. Get a for value command and drag it inside of the loop, but underneath our browser open command. For the prompt window caption, let's put the bot name, CD18-stock prices. For the prompt message, let's put please enter current price for and a space. Then, let's press F2 and select our stock symbol variable from the list of available options so that we can see which stock symbol we're working on each time. Finally, let's assign the value to a new variable by clicking the Create Variable icon. This variable will hold the price, so let's call it price. Now we need to put this value into our spreadsheet, so let's move over one cell to the right. We can do this easily by copying our go-to cell command on line 3 and pasting it just after our prompt command on line 7, but still inside of the loop. We'll change the cell option to active cell and select one cell to the right from the dropdown so that we're now in the price column. Then, we need to grab an Excel basic set cell command from the Actions sidebar. Head over to the Actions sidebar and search for Excel basic. Grab a set cell command and drag it just below our go-to cell command, but still inside the loop. We can leave it set to active cell, and for the value to set, let's use our new price variable by clicking in there and pressing F2. Then, we just need to change the session name to stocks in all caps to match our other commands. Finally, we need to make sure that we go to the beginning of the next row so that we work on a new column on the next loop. We'll go ahead and copy our go-to cell command from line 8 and paste it twice after our set cell command on line 9. For the first go-to cell command on line 10, let's tell it to go one cell below so that we're on the next row. Then, for the second go-to cell command on line 11, let's select beginning of the row. Now we know that we'll have the first cell of the next row selected when the loop repeats. Next, we need to close the browser that we'd opened on line 6. For that, we'll head back over to the Actions sidebar and look at the browser package again. We're going to grab a new command from the browser package called close. The browser close command is pretty self-explanatory, but it has some options that make it a little more robust, as we'll see in a second. Drag that command inside of the loop and below the last go-to cell command on line 11, And you'll first notice that we have a couple of options for what to close. Tab will close the specific tab that we have opened, while Window will close the entire window that holds our tab, and All Browsers will close every web browser that's currently open. The first two options won't work for us here, because we would need to use a new type of variable that we won't learn about until the Junior Developer course. So let's select All Browsers. This will close the RPA workspace as well when we run it, but the bot will still be able to run, so it's okay. The last thing we need to do is download last year's data for this stock, and that gives me a chance to show you something really cool. Earlier, we downloaded a file by using the download file command, but sometimes there are very specific URLs that you can use to download files just by opening the URL itself. I was able to use Google to find a lot of videos talking about how to do this with Yahoo Finance, and most other major websites have a feature similar to this as well. I've broken up the URL that we'll need into two parts in the important links txt. But before we do that, let's head back to the RPA workspace and copy our browser open command from line 6 and paste it inside of our loop just after our browser close command. We'll leave all the options here the same, but let's delete everything before our stock symbol variable. In front of that variable, we can paste history URL part 1 from the important links txt. This part of the URL tells Yahoo Finance that we want to download a file, and our stock symbol after that last / tells it that we want to download data for that particular stock. Now, let's head back to the txt and grab history URL part 2. Copy that and paste it after the stock symbol variable. This part of the URL contains all of the different options that we want to tell Yahoo about when we download it. Basically, we're telling it that we want all of this stock's prices between period 1 and period 2, which are written in Unix time format. I won't go into that here, but you can find converter tools online that convert regular dates into Unix time format, which is just a very large number. Then, we're telling it that we want it to show us the average price per day, which is represented by this interval portion at the end. Understanding how this URL works is pretty advanced stuff, but figuring out how to get it is actually easier than you might think. To show you, let's quickly open up our link from line 6. I'm going to go ahead and grab everything in that URL except for our stock symbol variable, and then copy it. Then I'll open a new tab in Chrome, paste this into it, and press Enter. This will open up Yahoo Finance, and I'm just going to click on the first stock symbol I see, though any of them would be fine. This takes us to the page for that stock, and below the current price, there's a historical data tab that I want to go to. Let's head over to the time period and change it so that our start date is January 1st. Then let's change the end date to December 31st of 2021. Now, hover over the download link. I can see the URL pop up in the lower left-hand side of the screen. You'll notice that it looks a lot like the URL I gave you, and we can copy this by right-clicking on the download link and selecting Copy Link Address. If I were to paste this in the browser up at the top, we can see all the parts of our URL. There's also a couple more unnecessary parts, like the events and include adjusted close parts. We'll also see that just after the word download, it has the stock symbol for this stock. If we replace that with any other stock symbol and press enter, it'll download the file directly to our downloads folder. But let's not do that for now. Instead, let's close these tabs and go back to our bot. Like I mentioned, when our browser open command executes on line 13, it'll automatically download the file to our downloads folder, and it'll name it after the stock symbol and add a CSV to the end. Let's make sure that we get a fresh new file every time by deleting this file if it already exists. To do that, let's head to the Actions sidebar and navigate to the if package. Then, drag an if command inside of the loop just before our browser open command on line 13. We want to clear the way for this file first, because when that browser open command executes, it'll download that file. For this condition, let's go select File Exists. We need the file path for our Downloads folder, so let's open up File Explorer and go to the Downloads folder. Normally, we'd be able to click to the right and copy the path up here like we have been, but this is a special folder that won't allow us to do it that way. Instead, let's right-click on the Downloads folder and select Properties. In the pop-up, we can highlight the location and copy it. Back in our bot, we can paste it into the file path. But we need to add a backslash and then the word downloads. Then we need to add another backslash and press F2 to enter our stock symbol variable. Finally, we need to add .csv at the end. Now let's head back to the Actions sidebar to grab a file delete command. Search for the file package. Then drag a delete command inside of the if command and copy the file path from the if command and paste it into the delete command. Now, if we already have a file like this, it'll delete the old one before downloading the new one. Finally, we need to copy the file from our Downloads folder to the CD18 folder on the desktop. Let's go back to the File package and grab a Copy Desktop File command from the sidebar and drag that after the browser open command. For the source file option, we can paste that same path that we just used in our delete command, because at this point we should have a new file at that location. For the destination file folder, we can copy the path we saved to in our browser download file command on line 1 and paste it here. But we need to remove the stocks requested.xlsx and then replace it with the stock symbol variable by pressing F2 and then adding .csv to the end. Finally, let's select the Overwrite Existing Files checkbox so that we can run this bot as many times as we want. There's a slight danger with this copy desktop file though. If we think about it, it usually takes some time for a file to download, even small ones like this. With that in mind, it's possible that our bot will go so fast that the file won't be done downloading by the time our copy desktop file command executes. We could build some logic in to wait for the file, but there's a smarter way to do this by re-examining the order of operations in our bot. The only reason we downloaded the file after checking the current price is because that was how I described the process earlier. But what if we downloaded the file first, then got the current price, and copied the file last? That should give us more than enough time for the file to download. So let's select the browser open command on line 15, then hold Control while we select the if command on line 13. Then we'll move all of this in between the get single cell command on line 5 and the browser open command on line 6. Now, while the file is downloading, we'll be putting the current price into the prompt. That can cause a bit of an issue with our windows though, if one opens up quicker than the other, so let's add a 1-second delay in between the two browser commands. Head over to the Actions sidebar and search for the delay package. We'll drag this delay in between the two browser open commands on lines 8 and 9. For the delay, we'll leave it set as regular, but change it from 50 to 1, and then change the time unit below to seconds instead of milliseconds. We're almost done, but we still need to close and save the spreadsheet we've been updating, which can all be done with the Excel Basic Close command. Head back over to the Actions sidebar and search for the Excel Basic package. Then, drag the Close command over from the sidebar and put it after and outside of the loop, so that this is the very last thing we do. Don't forget that we need to change the session name to Stocks in all caps. And we need to ensure that the checkbox is checked so that it will also save. Now our bot's ready to run. Go ahead and run the bot, and when you come back, we'll look at the results together. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the results of that bot by navigating to our CD18 stock prices folder on the desktop. In here, we should see 26 files, one for each of the 25 stocks I gave you, and then the original stocksrequested.xlsx file. Let's open that one first. Inside, we should see all of the prices that we entered while we went through the process. If they're not there, make sure that your Excel Basic Close command has the Save box checked. Back in our folder, let's open up any of the other files. Inside, you'll see a year's worth of data, just like our boss asked for. Congratulations! You just got the current price and a year's worth of historical data for 25 stocks in a matter of minutes, certainly faster than if we had done this process manually. Even with these most basic automation tools, I think it's clear that we can save a lot of time by automating tedious tasks like this one. Good work! And that's it! Now you know the basic details of the browser package, how to open and close browsers, as well as how to download files. We also learned a really neat way to download files by opening URLs that build files dynamically based on certain parameters we give it in the URL, and how to find those URLs. Now, we just need a way to automate getting data from those websites. Fortunately, you won't have to wait too long for that. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. For more RPA training, check out the next video here, or watch everything in order right here. Subscribe to my channel for updates on new content, and become a patron to get access to personalized RPA support. But until next time, I'm Jordan at Afterburner Automation, and I hope this helps you build better bots.